In mid-April 2024, the Prusa MK4 3D printer celebrated 1 year since its launch. As a gift for the Prusa MK4, Prusa Research has prepared a new firmware version 6.00. In today's video, we take a look at the most interesting new features that this firmware brings. Before we start, I would like to say a few words. I bought the 3D printer in this video with my own money. No one has any influence on the content of the video and no one is paying me for it. The video is for informational purposes only and it's not intended to harm anyone. If you would like to support my work, you can do so by subscribing here on YouTube, on my social media and by sharing my videos. In this video, we will look at just a few of the main new features of the new firmware version 6.00 for Prusa MK4. These include improvements to the object cancel function in print, stuck filament detection, cold pool wizard, touch control and stealth mode. As I have been testing this firmware since the first public release, it needed to be updated to the final full version first. The entire update took approximately 1.5 minutes. First, we will look at the new feature in the form of touch control. This feature needed to be activated in the menu in the user interface section. By moving up or down, you can scroll the screen. By swiping left and right, you can move to the previous menu. For some menu items, it is necessary to use the control knob despite the touch control. A warning about this behavior can be found directly on the GitHub in the description of the changes of this firmware. Touch sensitivity and accuracy was very good, but users with larger fingers may occasionally encounter difficulties. As the second new thing, I chose cold pool. Cold pool is a method of releasing a clogged nozzle by pulling the filament out of the printhead when the nozzle is heated slightly above the softening point of the material. For example, for PLA this point is between 80 and 100 degrees Celsius. The Prusa MK4 now has a wizard that performs this entire process for you. Just feed the printer with some PLA filament, if you don't already have some in your printer, and follow this wizard. Once the process is started, the printer will heat the nozzle to 80 degrees and begin to slowly eject the filament from the nozzle. While the filament is ejecting, it raises the nozzle temperature from 80 to 85 degrees. You are then asked to pull the filament out of the printhead. This goes very hard and you are even advised to open the filament pressure door. Looking at the end of the filament now, we can see a damn well executed cold pool. As a third new feature, I chose the stuck filament detection. This detection works with a load cell sensor that is implemented in the printhead heatsink. I talked more about it in my video preview of the Prusa MK4 where I said this. Thanks to the load sensor, the heatsink actually reacts to any effort to deform it. So the printer might be able to detect problems with the filament unwinding from the spool, for example. Also, the printer might be able to detect a problem with the filament pushing into the nozzle, such as in the case of a clogged nozzle. Again, these are just my thoughts and ideas. It seems that this is exactly what Prusa Research has tried to do in the new firmware version. In the first test, I tried to replace PLA filament with nylon. Due to the different melting temperature of nylon, it should clog the nozzle immediately, which is what actually happened. As soon as the nylon entered the nozzle, the measured value of the load cell spiked and the extruder motor started to lose steps. The firmware responded to this by running the stuck filament wizard, which was actually a filament change wizard with information about the error. After replacing the filament, printing continued normally. As you can see in the print really just continued printing without any back compensation of the missing material. There is one catch though. The new feature may be called stuck filament detection, but I would call it more like clogged nozzle detection. In fact, the printer only detects that it can't push filament into the nozzle. When I made a knot in the filament, as in the case of a tangled filament on the spool, nothing happened. The printer continued to print. A note about this behavior can be found directly on GitHub in the description of the changes for this firmware. For the fourth new feature, I chose Stealth Mode. In the case of the Prusa MK3, it was a change in the control mode of the stepper motors. This made the printer noticeably quieter during printing. For the Prusa MK4, unfortunately, it is not that exciting. When Stealth Mode is activated, the firmware sets limits on acceleration, feed rate and jerk speed, which is also explained on GitHub in the description of the changes for this firmware. Setting a limit on these parameters will reduce the print speed, resulting in a reduced noise and increased overall print time. So the resulting reduction in print noise is dependent on the original print parameters, model size and model shape. The latest update is an improvement of the features in Prusa Connect. One new feature is the ability to update the printer firmware directly through Prusa Connect. The second improved feature is object cancelling in the current print job. The print job detail now shows the print sheet and the print objects on it. By clicking on an object, you have the option to cancel that specific object from printing. The new firmware brings a lot of nice and useful new features. For me personally, I don't consider Stealth Mode to be anything special, as the difference is not very noticeable in my case. I also encountered one small issue with this firmware. The QR codes as well as the links listed under Cold Pool and under Stuck Filament Detection point to non-existent pages. At least at the time of recording, this was the case. Let me know in the comments below the video which new feature you like the most, how this firmware works for you and maybe what you think about this new firmware.